All right, let's go ahead and begin. If you are joining us for the first time today on the training session, today we are going to be covering a full implementation demo. So we are going to be building a sample application from scratch so you can see how things function inside Caspio. If you haven't attended all the prior sessions, if this is your first time joining in, I would highly recommend that you start your training on Monday. That's where we cover the basics. Tuesday is the intermediate session. Wednesday is the advanced session. Thursday, anybody can join in because we cover the styles and localization. And today we're going to be covering everything we've learned up to this point. We're going to be putting it all together and see what we can do in about an hour. We do have a lot of ground to cover, so I am not going to be muting and unmuting the line too much because I need to get through this pretty quickly. Today's session will be recorded. If anybody wants to see a video later of the recording, send me an email and I will be more than happy to email that to you. You can also give me a call if you have a quick question. And before we begin today's session, I'm going to unmute the line to see if anybody has any questions before we get started here. All right, can anybody hear me? Just to make sure if people can hear me, just type in the chat tool that you can hear me. Okay. Great, thanks, Kevin. All right, I'm going to go ahead and mute the line, and let's go ahead and begin today's session. So again, it's a full implementation demo, and let me go over the overview a little bit of what we're going to be covering today. I thought it would be pretty cool to build like a newsfeed type application, something similar to what you see on Facebook and Twitter, where users can register on a website, they can log into their account, they can add a newsfeed, and other users will be able to see the newsfeed of what other people are submitting. And this newsfeed will have a little bit of a twist. I'd like to have the users be able to upload an image, location of where that image was taken, and other users will be able to see a Google map where that address is pinpointed on the Google map, so you can easily locate where that image was taken. To give you a use case, let's take for example, you go to a restaurant and you take an image of this delectable meal that you just ate, and you wanted to share that with other members of the community. You take an image, you type in the address of where that restaurant is located, and then all the other members will be able to see where you took that image. Another use case would be, let's say if you're media and if you're out there in the field and you give your users the ability to take images using a mobile device, they can submit that image and now everyone else can see where that news is happening or what's happening in that location, for example. So that's what we're going to be covering today. Hopefully you guys can benefit from that one way or another. Again, like I said, we're going to record today's session. So if anybody wants to see what we covered today, feel free to email me and I'll happily email you the file. It's a generic app, so let's get through it, see how much we can cover today. We're also going to be covering, part of it's going to be covering architecture planning, table design, data page creation, authentication, and also deployment to a website. And for those of you who are not aware of how Caspio works, we did cover this in the basic session. I just want to go over it one more time. Caspio, the way it works is you find a template, your own website. If you're using Wix, GoDaddy, your own hosting company, the way Caspio works is it embeds inside your own website by copying and pasting a snippet of code. So anything that you build inside your online Caspio account will provide a snippet of code, and you're going to paste that code into your website to be able to seamlessly embed your application into your own web pages. All right, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go inside Caspio. And what we're going to do right away is we're going to build a new app, and let's call this application Newsfeed. And you're going to be able to see that application right over here in the list of all of your applications inside the dashboard. And for those of you who are just joining us, just to let you know that I'm not going to be unmuting the line too much this time around on Fridays because we do have a lot of ground to cover. If you do end up having any questions, just submit it in the chat tool and I will hopefully either get to it right away or I will answer your question at the end of the session. You can also email me at the end of the session if you have any specific questions, and I will happily get to that as well. Once you name your application, you're going to click on Open. And the first thing you're going to do is go directly inside your tables. because the tables is where you want to begin building your application. This is the foundation of any application you build inside your Caspio account. So let's go ahead and build our first table, and the first table that I'm going to build is a user table, because I want my users to be able to register on my website by creating a first name, last name, email, password, all of your typical fields that you normally see if you go to, let's say, a Facebook or Twitter. Let's take a look. I think I have a question here. Give me a second. Diana has a question. Would you confirm the difference between app versus table versus data pages? Diana, I would love to explain that to you. If you want, I can send you an email later, or you can attend our Monday training session where we cover that. But basically, an application is, if you think of an application, that consists of all of your objects here on the left-hand side. So your tables, your data pages. Your app is your app. It's combination of tables, combination of data pages will consist of all of these objects, views, authentications. So all of these are part of one single application. Tables is where all of your data is stored. Okay, that's the database. That's where all of your data is going to be stored. So you, as the admin of the Caspio account, you're going to be able to go in there, you're going to be able to see all the data inside a table at any time. And data pages is really what goes into your website. That's the front-facing application aspect of your site. So this is where you will create forms, you will create reports, and you link all of your forms and reports to your tables. So these two are in a way linked. This is your back end. Your users don't actually see your tables, but your front end, your data pages, is what's going to go into your website. Okay. Sure, you're welcome. And then we do cover a lot of this in our Monday training session. Just you know, if you want a refresher, just come back on Monday, and we're going to have that recorded again if you wanted to revisit all the objects here on the left-hand side. Okay, so let's go ahead and build our user table. So the first thing that you're going to need is some kind of a user ID, and that's going to be an auto number. You're also going to need a name of the person that's registering on the website. You can also do first name, last name, depending on how you wish to collect the data. We're going to use email. That needs to be unique. And I'll briefly go over each one of these once I'm done typing in the fields. We do cover this in the Tuesday session, so be sure to attend that session if you wanted to get a more in-depth knowledge on how fields are built. So we're also going to need a field for date registered. It's always a useful field to have. That's going to be a date and time. Now it's up to you what additional fields you'd like to collect from your members. Okay, for now we're going to just keep it short. It's always best practice to keep the registration form short, because you don't want to overwhelm your users by having them fill out a long form just to register. Okay, so we're going to keep it simple. Email has to be unique because that's our username. You can't have the same email twice when people are registering. Password field is pretty self-explanatory. That's a password field. And auto number is like a social security number. That's how each user is going to be identified. Okay, so once you build your registration form, you're going to click on Save. And you're going to call this, for example, users table. Okay, so there's our user table. If you open it now, you'll see that it's a blank table. So I can right away, I can go to data pages now, and I can build my registration form based on that user table that we just created. So let's go ahead and do that. And before I build my registration form, like we talked about before, we want to build our folders. Folders is what's going to help us stay organized and clean, and we're going to know where everything is located. So I'm going to build my folder for all of my public-facing data pages, and I'm going to build a folder for all of my password-protected data pages that users will have access to. Obviously, the registration form that we're about to build is going to be public-facing because everyone is going to have access to that. If I go to a website, I want to be able to register. I don't want to have to log in before I see the registration form. So we're going to build that form inside our public folder. We're going to click on New Data. Okay, so we're going to need a submission form. Okay, this is going to turn into our registration form because we're adding data into our table. Okay, so we select submission form. And this is how you connect your table that you just created to your front-facing data page, what's going to go onto your website. So you select your user table, And then we have our style, we have our localization, and then let's call this user registration form. That way we know what this data page is going to be. So we select this, and then you can either enable advanced options. You don't have to for now. Let's go ahead and leave it disabled. You don't need to restrict access because it's going to be public facing, so you leave this unchecked. You click next. And then I want all of my fields in the registration form, except for the user ID. Notice that the user ID remains on the left-hand side because we made that an auto number in our table. And because it's an auto number, it's just automatically going to assign you a number when you sign up or register on the website. Then we have the name field here, and we're going to make this field required, which means I want the user to fill this in before they register. Same thing for email. Notice that it's automatically required because we made it unique inside our table with that checkbox. We have the password field, and usually what I like to do is I like to say in my label create password just so that the user know they're actually creating a password on the registration form. We're going to make this field required, and they have to confirm the password, which means they have to put the password in twice before they can sign up on the website. And then we have date registered, so this is going to be a timestamp. They don't actually need to see that. And when you're done, go ahead and click finish. And here's your first data page. And Diana, I think this is going to make a little bit more sense now. If I preview this, you're going to be able to see that registration form. Once the user, and this is going to be sitting on your own website. You're going to be deploying this data page to your website. And once the user fills this in, let's go ahead and make one dummy submission here. We can say Carrie Smith, Carrie@test.com, password can be test. And once the user submits this on your own website, your submission was successful. This is what I mean by the backend tables. You're the only person who has access to all this data. So when you open up your table, you're going to be able to see that registered member. And you're going to be able to see all the information pertaining to that registered member, including the date of registration. As an admin, you can also change their password directly inside a table if you want to. And then here we have the auto number populated as 1. The next member that signs up on your website will be 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. So this is your table of all the registered members. So I do have a template actually created for us here where I'm going to be embedding this stuff. So on our home page or index.html page, we're going to embed the registration form. So let's go into our Caspio account and let's go ahead and deploy this. And deployment is also covered in the basic session and also advanced and intermediate. So that's covered in the prior session. So be sure to attend those sessions if you wanted to learn more about deployment. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my script, my index page, which is typically a home page of any website that you build. I have my placeholder down below. I'm just going to paste my Caspio code into that part of the website, save my script, refresh my home page, and let me make sure it's live so we can test it out. sumapp.com. Okay, so now this data page is sitting on my website, and every time somebody hits this page, index.html, let's say Tom Jenkins, tom@test.com. Again, we can say password is test. Okay, your submission was successful. And let's go into our table again just to verify that the record went in inside a table. And there's Tom Jenkins and his information inside the user table. Okay, I'm going to unmute the line to see if anybody has any questions up to this point. You can also type it into the chat tool, so let me know if there are any questions. All right, good. So let's pause here and let's continue. So now that we have the registration form built, I want to build a login screen so users can log into their account and be able to go directly to the newsfeed. Okay. So just to also give you a little bit of a thought process on how I build my applications and my websites, when you find that template that you really like from Wix or GoDaddy, and when you're putting in your content, for example, your logo, your navigation menu, your text, you always want to visualize or imagine where you want those Caspio data pages embedded. So for example, if we just go to this page, for instance, and this is my home page, for example, I have my content about my website, And I may just leave some room here on the right side for my registration form, because that's where I'm visualizing my registration form to go. If you look at my example, it's really plain and boring because we don't have any content. It's just for functionality purposes. So let's go to the login page and let's create that login screen now. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to go to data pages. Before I go to data pages, I have to create my authentication. Okay, authentication is what creates that login screen effect on the data page. So let's go to authentications, create a new one, and we're going to go ahead and select the user table. And again, like I said in the past, you can also use the express model or custom, which I recommend because it gives you more options. I typically like to go with the recommended Caspio data source, but if your application calls for social login like Google, Facebook, or Twitter, you can also enable this. And we're going to have email. I'm just going to go ahead and change my label to say email. Then we have the password field, which is going to be password. And down below we have the advanced settings. And there are a couple of options here that I haven't talked about yet. For example, the logout destination. So if a user is logged inside his or her account, there's going to be a logout link. And when you click on that logout link, I want my users to be redirected to that specific page. And in this example, I want my users to go to my login page once they log out of their account. So I'm going to copy this link. And inside the logout destination, all I'm going to do is say go to new page, and I'm going to go ahead and paste that URL and click save. So what this means, if a user logs out of his account, they're going to go to this page. For time-honored redirection, I'm also going to have that same URL here. And this is for security reasons. If you go to your bank account, and let's say you leave your bank account, you're logged in and you leave it unattended for about 2 hours or 3 hours, their system is automatically going to log you out after that specific period of time. And you can also play around with how much time you want your users to be able to be logged inside their account before they're logged out automatically. And then we click save here, and then you have those two links. Okay, I'm going to click on create, and I'm going to call this users auth for authentication. Okay, so now that we have the authentication set up, let's go to data pages. And let's go inside our, no, it's not going to be inside a public folder. It's going to be inside the user protect. Actually, no, it's going to be in the public folder. So this is where we need to build a data page for the login screen. Okay, and this login screen that I'm about to create is a little bit different than what we've done in the past, in the prior sessions. And the only reason why it's different is if you notice that on my home page, I'm only seeing these two navigation tabs, the home and login. But when I log inside my account, I want the user to be redirected to a different page. So they don't actually see this navigation anymore. Now when they log in, they're able to see a different navigation menu at the top, as opposed to home and login. So that's very standard inside web building process, and it's a little bit of a, I would say, it's not a highly advanced thing to do inside Caspio. So let me show you how it's done. We're going to click on new data page. And what we're going to be building is an HTML data page. Okay, so a little bit different than what we've done in the past. We're going to select this for now, click next here. And then what you need to do is select your style, you need to select your localization, and we're going to call this data page login screen. And this time we are going to need to restrict access based on our user authentication that we just created here under this tab, because we're password protecting it. Click next, and inside this window you just need to copy and paste a little bit of script that you can find in our knowledge base. So if you go to howto.caspio.com, and if you search for just standalone, which is a create a standalone login screen, you're going to need to copy the script. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and copy that, and inside our Caspio account you're going to paste that script right over here. And what the script is basically telling the application is when the user logs in, I want to go to a different location, which means I want to go to this URL upon logging in. And the URL that I want to take my users to is directly to the newsfeed. And I have called that page newsfeed.html. So we're going to go ahead and copy this URL, and we're going to replace this URL with the one that we just copied, like this. And then once you click finish, now you have that login screen. You can preview this right away to see what it looks like, and you'll be able to see the login screen, hopefully. It's not showing up for some reason. Let me see if I try to embed that. So let's go ahead and deploy this now. Let's see what happens here if I deploy it. So I'm going to deploy that to our login page. So let's go to login.html, and let's paste that code right over here, save our script, and refresh. Okay, and there's my login screen. For some reason, I think the preview was either loading it or wasn't loading it at first. I'll verify that later. But now you can navigate back and forth. You can go to your home page where you have the registration form, and then you have your login form right over here. And notice what happens when I try to log into my account. We have I think Tom at test.com. Let me take a look at my user table here for a second. Tom at test.com, password is test. So let's go to Tom at test.com, password is test. And when you log in, notice that now the user is redirected to this page, and we have a different set of navigation on this web page setup. Let me unmute the line now just to make sure that nobody is confused about what we've covered up to this point. Let me know if there are any questions. Okay, I'll go ahead and mute the line. All right, so if you've listened to my prior sessions, this is what I consider the foundation of the application that you build, which is the user table, the login screen, and the registration form is if you have a need for the registration form. This is really the bare bones or the foundation. So once you get the hang of how to create user tables, authentications, and data pages just for a basic login and basic registration, from here it gets a lot easier. Okay, and obviously now we need to set up a new table because we don't have any other fields for these users to interact with the application. All we have up to this point is a user table. So what I'm going to do is create a new table, and this table is going to collect all the news feeds. Okay, so for example, what we're going to need is maybe date submitted. That's going to be a date and time. We also want to have a newsfeed ID, just in case we want to relate this table later on to a different table. And I'm going to move this field actually to the very top. I usually like to have my IDs at the very top of my application. We also need user ID. That's going to be a number. And I'll explain later for the people that just joined us today, because we have the auto number in the user table, we want to be able to record the user's ID who is submitting that news feed. So we want to stamp their ID inside this table so the admin later on will be able to tell, okay, it was Tom who submitted that news feed, or it was Mary, or it was Carrie who was the one submitting that news feed. And then we may have title of what we're submitting. We might have a description, which we can make text 64,000. We might even be able to have that image, so we can upload an image or a picture of what we're submitting. So that's going to be a file. Let's see, title, description, image, and then we also need to have the address field. So address, city, state, and zip, where our location is. I'm going to clarify one little thing here. Obviously, this is not really the ideal way or best use case to have the user fill in all four of these fields if they're on the field using their mobile device or if they're on their computer. Nowadays, every mobile device has the capability of actually pinpointing your location, where you are, your longitude and latitude, your coordinates of your cell phone. So if you ever downloaded an app from an iTunes store and the app would ask you, do you want the application to know your location? You have the ability to say yes or don't allow. That will be the ideal way of doing this, but if you ever have a need for something like that, that requires a little bit of custom development from our development team. We've done it in the past. It just requires a little bit of JavaScript, okay, for the users to automatically be able to be pinpointed where they are, and it stores the longitude and latitude of their location. So if you do end up going with that route, our development team will typically actually put inside the field here long and latitude for LAT, and then it'll automatically store their location inside a table based on their location on the mobile device. But because I don't have that script, and that's done through our custom development team, we're going to keep it just simple like this, where the user actually has to submit the address. That way we can pinpoint that location on the map. Let me unmute the line just to see if anybody has any questions based on what I just said. Yes, go ahead. Gonna wait a couple more seconds here. I think okay, is there a way to have there be required fields that are either one, address, etc., or two, the GPS? So the GPS is not, you can't use the GPS on the form like that. You can have the address field be required, absolutely. You can make those fields required so the user has to submit it. That's done on the web form. And the long and lat, I don't think users will know that as in either a requirement for data entry. Oh, okay, so you're saying that if I take an image, I want to be able to either capture my long and lat or have them manually be able to type in the address, right? So almost like a filtering checkbox or a radio button for the user to decide which way they want to submit that. Is that correct? Okay, yeah, that's definitely possible, absolutely. What Daniel is asking us is there a way for the user to select manually which way they want to capture this information? And the answer is yes. You can have a radio button, for example, locate me based on my location, or let me manually put in the address fields. So that is possible. It just requires a little bit of customization. But again, I know we've done this in the past for other clients, for our media clients. So it is definitely possible. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and mute the line again, and let's move on. And I think these are the main fields that I would need to create this newsfeed effect. So we're going to go ahead and now save this table. And let's call it newsfeed. Alright, so now we have the newsfeed table, and if you open it, you'll notice that it's a blank table. There are absolutely no data just yet, so the users have to submit the data. Let's go inside our data pages, and if you look at our template, the user is already logged in. This is going to be our main report where the people are going to be able to see the news feeds, and this page here to new feed is where we're going to submit or deploy our form for the user to be able to submit the feed. So let's go to data pages. And under the users folder, we're going to click on new. And we want the submission form because we want to add the new feeds into the news feed. So we click next. We select that table for news feeds because that's where all the fields are. Style, localization, and let's call this add new feed form. And this time you want to restrict access. And you want to restrict based on the user authentication, which means that the only way people can see this form, if they register first and log into their account, they're going to be able to see that form then. And what would I like to have on my submission form? Well, let's have all of these fields. And for date submitted, this is going to be maybe a timestamp. User ID, if you attended our Tuesday session, you would have learned how to hide the field and also authenticate it based on the user's ID from the user table. So basically when I log in and I see this form, I don't need to see the user ID field in the form. It should automatically stamp my ID inside the form based on my user authentication. The title, you can leave it a text field, but title is usually can be a little bit lengthier, so we're going to go ahead and make this a text area. And we're going to say the width maybe 40 and the height can be 2. Description field can also be a text area, and we're going to make this 40 by 5. When it comes to the image, users have the ability to upload an image up to 50 megabytes per file. Let's say it's only going to be 10 megabytes. And we can say upload image inside the label. And then you have all the address fields. You have the address, city, state, and zip. You can make these fields required, which means they have to fill that in. I'm going to fill it in anyway, so I'm not going to make them required. And let's go ahead and click finish. And let's take a look. Let's go ahead and deploy this now. And we're going to deploy that on this page, newsfeed.html. So let's go to our script. It's called newsfeed.html, and my placeholder is down here, so I'm going to go ahead and paste that code, save my page, refresh, and there's my form. Okay, you can also make this cross-compatible with a mobile device. Right now it's just the style is built for the web browser, but of course you can make the fields a little bit longer. Actually, a good thing to see here is I don't know if anybody knows about this, but if you go to Google and if you type in iPhone tester, for example, and if you click on this, there are websites out there that allow you, well, not this one, that allow you to have like an emulator, so you can actually type in your URL here where you're hosting your Caspio data pages, and then you will be able to see what it looks like on the iPhone. So if I take my, let's go ahead and take this page. I think I might have to log in again because this browser here doesn't remember it. So let's see what happens here. Okay, it does remember it. So you can see that if you were actually looking at this page on the iPhone, it would look something like this. And depending on what it looks like, you might have to modify your style a little bit to change the field width of your fields, your labels. That way you can squeeze them nicely inside the iPhone. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and make one submission then. Let's have the title be restaurant, and let's say this delectable meal. And now I'm just going to go ahead and download a quick image, if you guys don't mind. Let me just go to Google and find a delectable meal. Actually, let's just find I don't know, burger. Image. No, not maps. Sorry. Let's go to images, and let's go ahead and just save this to our desktop, or let's see here, desktop. Okay, so let's go back to our application and let's upload that image. It should be here somewhere. Here we go. And the address, I'm going to go ahead and use the Caspio address here because that's the one that comes to mind, 2953 Bunker Hill Lane, City, Santa Clara, California, and zip code 95054. Okay, and then once you go ahead and submit this form here, your submission was successful, and then inside your table now, if you look at that second table that we built, let's go ahead and open it. You will be able to see all of that information, including the user ID that submitted that record, which in this case is Tom. We can see that the newsfeed auto number is 1. We can see date submitted, and of course we can see all the other information that pertains to this newsfeed item. All right, so now let's go ahead and create that effect where now the users can actually see the newsfeed of what other members are submitting. And then we can go back if you want to submit another newsfeed or new item. So let's go ahead and build a new data page. And now, because we're actually listing all the items, all the newsfeed items, we need to build a report because that's output. Forms are used for input, reports are used for output. And you can play around with this. This is really up to you, which layout or which style you want to have for your report. I think the one that I would like to have is maybe a list view or either a gallery. So it's always a trial and error until you figure out which style you like the best. So let's go with the list view because I know I want to list my my image and also information about that newsfeed. And we need to connect that list view to the newsfeed table. We have our style, we have our localization, and let's call this main newsfeed report. And again, you need to restrict access because only members of this application can look at the newsfeed. It shouldn't be public unless you make it public. It's up to you. close this. All right, so do we want the ability to search? No, I don't think so. I just want to be able to see the news feed right away based on some predefined criteria. Do you want to restrict record level access or RLS? I don't think so, not for this report, because I want all the users to be able to see all the feeds. Do we want to filter any data? Let's not filter based on any field. Let's just go directly to our results page. And in the results page, I'd like to be able to show, let's see, what will be the first thing? Maybe the title, maybe description. I know I want the image in there, and I know I want the address fields inside as well, so I can see the location of where that meal was taken or where that restaurant is. Of course, if you have that automatically captured using longitude and latitude, you wouldn't really have to include this. You would be able to see them on the map. We are going to be using the map feature in this demo as well, so just in a couple of minutes we're going to see how to do that. So let's click next. And in the results page, so here's the title, we have the description, the image, and for the image, let's go ahead and display it as an image. And let's set the width to maybe 200 pixels. And I'm going to leave the height blank, because if you put it as 200 by, let's say, 500, it's going to distort the image. But if you leave it as 200, it's going to keep the same parameters of that image. Once you uploaded it, it's going to maintain that same size. The only thing that's going to change is the width, but the height will be proportionate to the width. And then you have the address, city, state, and zip fields. We're going to click next. We're going to show 25 in our news feed per page. And let's go ahead and sort based on dates submitted from the newest to oldest, basically. All the new ones will appear at the top, and then we'll basically Z to A alphabetically. All right, let's click next. And let's go ahead and disable the details page and click finish. And now we're going to go ahead and deploy this news feed. And let's copy the code. And let's paste our news feed into the news feed page. Now I have no idea what this is going to look like. It's going to be a little bit of trial and error until we really get it to look like the way we want. But you know, this is what it looks like right now. It's centered. We can move that to the left, and I see that I have to change my labels to be black so people can see what's actually happening in that image, or what that is, the description. We're not going to spend any time on styling. I went over that yesterday in the Thursday session, so we have to get to the map. So let's go ahead and figure out how we can integrate our Google map with the results now, so we can pinpoint the location of each one of these items. All right, so to integrate a Google map with Caspio, with your Caspio application, it's actually fairly easy. There's a separate page where you have to log in. So first I'm going to go to the support tab, and there are a couple of ways of getting there. You can click on extensions, go to Google Map Mashup. It's called Map Mashup. And you can go to View Map Mashup Instructions. And from here, there is going to be a link that I have to find really quickly. Here's the link. You can also get to this page from our howto.caspio.com. You don't have to go through the main website. But this is the link that you're going to want to bookmark if you're doing anything with maps, which is lib.caspio.com. When I click on that, you will see that it's a separate username and password where you have to log in to set up your map. Okay, this is part of Caspio's system, so you can go ahead and log in as your credentials, your Caspio credentials. Let's go ahead and log in like this, and I know my password. Okay, so here we are inside the wizard, and again, it's point and click. You know, you select your options just like the Caspio data page wizard. You select all of your options, you click next until you get to the deploy code. So the map view that I want is a classic view. I want the map to maybe be 600 width and 400 height. I want the position of the map to be California. Results page is going to be zoom level, so this refers to zoom level. So we have the automatic. Details page, we don't have a details page, so we don't have to worry about that. And where do you want to zoom in on California? I want the state, so it looks at the entire state of California. Okay, this is the home level. You can also make this USA, and that's going to zoom out the map to see the whole entire United States. but I want California for my application. And then here you have a couple other options to be able to disable markers. You just have to really play around with this until you're able to figure out what each one of these checkboxes does. And you can always go back and forth to customize the look and feel of your map. Okay, so let's go ahead and click next here. And on this screen is where you select your data page, which one you want to connect to your map. And you can see that my data page is down here. This is the report, the main newsfeed report. Okay, so I'm going to select that data page. I'm going to click finish, or actually I'm going to click add. And now you have to select a couple of more things here before the map is completed. If we had the long and lat fields, we will be able to connect them here, but we don't have those fields available from our table. So we're going to have to use the address fields. And here are my address fields: address, city, state, and zip. Okay. And you can also add additional fields, but I only need these 4 fields to be able to pinpoint the location of each newsfeed. You can select what type of marker you'd like to have on the map. These are different colors. You can also customize your own icon, just like we did the calendar yesterday. You can create your own icon. So if it's a restaurant icon, which would be pretty cool if it just pertains to restaurants, you can upload it and you can paste the HTTP of the restaurant icon right in this field. You can also enable Map It to be able to zoom in directly on the map once you click on that newsfeed. So let's go ahead and call this maybe pinpoint or something like that. Do we want to show the map on the details page? For now, we're not gonna have a map on the details page. We're gonna hide the map on the search form, although we don't really have a search form, so we don't need to enable that. And then this is different markers based on different criteria. So if you had different criteria, not just restaurants, if you had, let's say, banks, you can have a different icon for different criteria inside your table. And let's see what we have so far. Let's go ahead and click finish here. And Caspio is going to go ahead and produce this code for you that you're going to have to copy and paste now. So if you follow the instructions here on what you need to do, you're going to have to copy and paste each one of these snippets to the corresponding data page and also your web page. And I may have a question. Let's take a look. Can you do different icons for different input data? For example, red for restaurants, green for bars. Yes, you can do that, but you're gonna have to create. Actually, no, I don't think you'll have to create different icons. I think you can just use our standard icons. But yeah, you can also do that. Have a different icon for different location type. Yeah, and I think we might have a live example of that somewhere. If anybody wants me to send you a link so you can see how one of our news media outlets is doing that, I can send you a link so you can see the different colors and different icons pertaining to each criteria. Okay, will do. All right, so let's follow the instructions and see if we can get this done here. So copy the following code snippet and paste it into your web page above the data page deployment code. Okay, so you want to copy this snippet, the very first one, and then what you want to do in your newsfeed page, you want to paste that above your Caspio deploy code. So you're just going to go ahead and paste that right over here like this. You're going to save that script. Let's see what else we need to do. Okay, so inside Caspio Bridge account, edit this data page, configure results page fields, add an HTML block after all of your fields, and paste this code inside the HTML block. Okay, so let's go ahead and copy this code, go inside our Caspio account and edit the newsfeed report. And the instructions say go directly to configure your results page field. So let's go to configure results page fields. We want to add an HTML block. We want to move that all the way to the bottom. And we want to paste our code right over here. And let's see if we have any more additional instructions. And this is if you have a details page. If you edit the data page, go to the, yeah, if you have a details page, you will paste this inside the header of the details page. Okay, so just to make sure in your Caspio Bridge account, edit this data page. Configure details. Yeah, so if you had a details page, you would do this here. I'm just going to go ahead and click on refresh just to see what happens here. Hopefully, let me click finish and save my data page. If you have done everything correctly, it's been a while since I integrated Google Maps, so let me refresh here and see what happens. Okay, good. So the map shows up. That's good. And what we need to do here is now place this map inside our web page, which is actually pretty easy to do as well. Well, I don't know where this pizza came from. Did somebody else submit this? Did somebody else go to our URL and submit the pizza? Okay, we had Robert who actually was at the same URL. He went to the URL, logged in, and submitted the pizza. It surprised me. I wasn't expecting that. Cool. No, that's awesome. So let's go ahead and let's position this map now inside our web page. And to do that, we go to our Google Map instructions. I think I may have closed it down. Let's open it again. And if you follow the instructions here, this was the link to log in to set up your map. Down below you will see this div that you have to copy and paste inside your web page to where you want that map to be positioned. Okay, so wherever you paste this guy, that's where your map is going to show up inside your web page. Now let's take a look at my website. I have typically what I would do is I would put the map on the side. But in order for me to do that, I have to create a little bit of HTML inside my script. I have to create 2 tables or 2 divs and position things. So all I'm going to do is going to put that map at the top of my results page. And to do that, I'm going to go to my script, and we're going to go ahead and paste that div code right over here above. I think I have to paste it either here. Actually, let's remove that. And well, let's see what happens. I'm just going to paste it above that code that the wizard gave me. So let's do this and refresh again. Okay, so there's my map appearing right above my results page. But as you can see, something is not working correctly because I'm not able to see my pinpoints of those locations. What I need to do, actually, I think I may have figured it out. So let me edit the newsfeed. And I think what I need to do is enable my advanced options and parameters. Let me see if that fixes it. Refresh. There's the pinpoint. And there are my locations. Okay, so it was really, you have to enable advanced options, you have to enable parameters. And then when you pinpoint, then you're able to zoom in on that specific location. So just make sure you enable those advanced options and parameters inside your report, and then you'll be able to see those pinpoints for those locations. And then of course, as you add more to the news feed, you're going to be able to see more on the news feed as well of what other people are submitting. You can change the width and height of your map. You can position it elsewhere. It doesn't have to look like this. And then of course you can change the width and height of your images, have a list view, and then it's really, once you get the functionality working correctly, in my opinion, that's when the fun part begins. Because if the functionality is there, then the look and feel follows right after that. And change the aesthetics, and if you're meticulous like I am, you'll spend a little bit of time making sure that it looks nice. Yeah, I think the echo is because it's me. Let me, Kevin, can you hear the echo now? Is it still echoing? Hello, hello. Okay, good, good. So as I was saying, once you get the functionality working correctly, don't worry too much about the aesthetics right away when you're building your app. Once you figure out, once all the functionality is working, then the fun part begins. You can start playing around with styles, aesthetics to make sure that it looks polished and it's presentable to your end users. And when you're building your application, if it's more of an entrepreneurial style application, what we're doing right now, if it's more pertaining to social media, my recommendation is always to just release a beta, something that has the main bells and whistles of what you need to have in your application. You don't have to build the entire thing what you envisioned. Just release at certain stages, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, but make sure that stage 1 is functional enough for users to be able to register, log in, and be able to submit newsfeed. And at stage 2, what you could do is when the user is logged inside their account, you can have another tab here that says My News Feeds. And then the user has the ability to edit just his or her news feeds and be able to see those. If I want to publish this news feed, if I want to delete it, if I want to comment on it. So you may have more functionality to your app, but I always recommend just release things in stages. You don't want to, obviously, financially to devote too much time on something that's not going to gain enough traction or give you enough value in what you're building. So release one step at a time. See if it's going to work for you. If you start getting that traction, and obviously if you get the visitors, then you can build upon that, and you can start making some solid revenue depending on the nature of your application if you're looking to monetize it. So all of that is available, and hopefully today's session was beneficial. I thought it would be a cool thing to do. It's a generic app, but it can get a lot of things done if you're looking to collect addresses and pinpoint locations on maps. Okay, well, I thank everybody for joining today. Again, my name is Ned. If you have questions, email me, give me a call, and all of the training sessions that you attended this week will be recorded starting next week, and they will be available on the website, so you can watch them at any time. You don't have to attend any more of my training sessions if you don't want to, but if you wanted to get a refresher and just ask a couple of questions, you can attend, and I'll happily answer your questions like I have all week long. Thanks, guys. I hope everybody has a good day, and I hope to see you again in next week's training sessions. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.